We begin today with some breaking news. The son of a man who was accused in the 1985 Air India bombing has been officially warned by the RCMP that his life could be under threat. Hardeep Malik, a businessman in Surrey, British Columbia, is the son of Rapudaman Singh Malik. Rapudaman Singh Malik was acquitted in 2005 of mass murder and conspiracy charges related to a pair of bombings in 1985 that killed 331 people. He was gunned down outside his office in Surrey in 2022. Two men have since been charged in his murder, and now CBC News has learned that investigators have been probing a possible link between this murder and the government of India. The CBC's Evan Dyer broke this story, and he joins me now with more. Evan, let's start with a reminder of who Rapudaman Singh Malik was.
He was a man who immigrated to Canada about 50 years ago now and became involved allegedly in Sikh militancy in the 80s and was charged and ultimately acquitted at trial as a co-conspirator in the Air India bombing, that largest act of terrorism, largest act of mass murder in Canadian history. Although he was acquitted, not everyone was convinced that he had nothing to do with it. There were still suspicions that lingered. That was, of course, a very flawed investigation, famously flawed investigation. He then appeared to reconcile with the government of India. And India maintains a blacklist of Sikh militants. You may remember the famous Jaspal Atwal story when we were in India. Well, he was on that list, but was able to get himself off with the help of an Indian diplomat called Amarjit Singh, and was able to even travel to India to go back to his native village and return safely to Canada. And yet it appears that there is now a good deal of doubt about whether that reconciliation was genuine. And of course, Rapudaman Singh Malik's life ended about a year almost before the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, when he was shot also by a couple of shooters who are believed to be contract killers, who have since been arrested and charged with first-degree murder and are due to go on trial in October. But the motive of that killing has never really been clarified. However, there are things that, as with Nijjar, point very much at the government of India.
Okay, one of those things, this is the most recent development. So
Yes.
just to get to that and then walk a little bit more through sort of the reaction at the time of Malik's murder, the most recent development is a warning has been issued to a member of his family.
That's
What can
right.
you tell us about that?
His son, Hardeep, who took over as a board member at the Khalsa school that was founded by Rapudaman Singh Malik, a big Sikh school in Surrey, received a duty to warn letter last week. This is a letter that is issued by the RCMP. Under law, it's required to do that when it has solid intelligence suggesting a threat against a person's life, a conspiracy to murder, usually. And in the case of the Sikh community in BC, these letters have typically been issued to people who are considered to be at risk from the government of India or its agents. For example, Hardeep Singh Nijjar himself received one of these letters shortly before he was killed. Other people who've received those letters have had to go into hiding. And so it appears that the fact that he's now receiving one of these letters again is a sort of an indication that that reconciliation with Malik and the Malik family that the government of India appeared to go through may not have actually been real, that may be that some of the dangers that apparently hung over the father have now perhaps been inherited by the son.
So this development would cause a bit of a re-examination of some of that initial reaction at the time of Rapudaman Singh Malik's murder in Surrey. How do we assess it?
Well, there are other elements too. I mean, another one, for example, is I mentioned that trip that he was able to make back to India. Well, his own brother went on Indian television at the time and gave the credit for making this all happen to somebody in India. Of course, I mentioned already that diplomat here in Canada, Amarjit Singh, but there's another man called Samant Goel who was the head of the research and analysis wing in India. This is India's international intelligence service. And he actually met with Hardeep Singh Malik, the brother of Rapudaman Singh Malik, who credited him for having made this all possible, this great reconciliation. Everything was now in the past. Well, Samant Goel is now tied up in the assassination plot alleged in a U.S. indictment for the plot to kill a Sikh separatist in New York, someone very closely associated with Hardeep Singh Nijjar, called Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. And Samant Goel is identified in the unsealed indictment and in reporting by the Washington Post as the official who was behind that in India. So the fact that he's also tied up with this is one element that we have in India. But then there's another element here in Canada, which involves the Indian diplomat Amarjit Singh. And we've obtained call logs and chat logs and also looked at an agenda, a day timer, where you can see communications that appear to be between him and Rapudaman Singh Malik, literally in the hours before the shooting, appearing to set up a meeting, some of them in the very early hours of the morning, like a communication at 4:53 a.m., about 4 hours before the shooting, and also a diary entry where there's a meeting scheduled with an Amerjit about half an hour after the shooting. So those indications, none of them are conclusive enough for the RCMP or investigators to have reached a definitive conclusion. And I want to make that clear. Nobody has been accused, nobody has been charged, and also investigators don't feel they're quite as far along in this case as they were in the Niger case, and that's why we did see charges in the Niger case.
But it's clear in your reporting, and based on the fact that the warning letter has been delivered to Hardeep Malik, the son, that investigators are investigating.
There is there's still an active investigation,
right?
absolutely.
Because at the time when Rapudaman Singh Malik was killed, it was suspected it was some rival factions or maybe some crime or business venture gone bad. Now investigators are actively looking at whether the government of India played a role in this.
That's right. I mean, one of the things that happened as a consequence of that apparent reconciliation between Rapudaman Singh Malik and the government of India was that it created suspicion within the Sikh community about him. Was he now passing information to the government of India, as some other people were alleged to have done to get their names off the blacklist? Had he turned his back on the old cause that other people like Hardeep Singh Nijjar was still attached to? And there was a lot of speculation in Indian media, fed by Indian security sources, that this was exactly that it was an internecine feud between Sikh separatists and former Sikh separatists involving gangs and so on. The one thing that does appear clear is that the two people accused of the shooting, who are now facing a first-degree murder trial in October, have no connections to India whatsoever. Their names are Tanner Fox and Jose Lopez. They have no connections to India. One of them is actually accused in another murder. So they very much fit the profile of murder for hire. Where there's a murder for hire, there's somebody paying the bills. And that person has not yet been identified. And that is why that investigation stays open.
Okay. The CBC's Evan Dyer. You can read his full article online at CBCNews.ca. Evan, thanks so much.
Thanks, David.